It's 8:49. Sally's in the studio this morning. And Sally, you've got some fantastic guests lined up for us.
Yeah, great guest. Been looking forward to this all morning. Morning, everybody. Judy Murray has always been a proud promoter and advocate of women in sport, so perhaps appropriate that her new project involves talking to some of the country's most successful and prominent sportswomen, including Dame Kelly Holmes. Delighted to say we can speak to both of them now. Judy is at home in Perthshire and Kelly is at home in Kent this morning. Morning to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for chatting to us here on Breakfast this morning. Judy, I'm going to come to you first and get the question that I have to ask you out of the way. We know Andy has tested positive for coronavirus. How is he doing?
He's doing okay. I think he gets out today, so he can resume some training, and then of course it's a question of waiting and seeing whether he is able to fly out to Australia and take part. Nobody knows the answer to that one yet.
What do you make of what's happening in Australia at the moment?
Well, the only person really that I'm talking to who's out there is Jamie, and he was one of the fortunate ones who was on a clear flight, which basically means that he's allowed out of his hotel room for 5 hours a day. So he gets a knock on the door at 6:30 in the morning. He can walk across to the courts, he can practice for a couple of hours, he can do 90 minutes of gym and 60 minutes of food and then walk back to the hotel, and he's back in his hotel room for 11:30, and that's him in for the rest of the day. But he's in a more fortunate position than many of the players, including Heather Watson, who are really locked down for 14 days now, 24/7, and are making the best of whatever's in their hotel room to do whatever kind of physical training they are able to.
Judy, tell me, what is behind your new series? Because it's really the tables being turned, isn't it? You are the one asking the questions now. Have you enjoyed doing that?
I'm doing you, Sally. That's what I do. Yeah, I've absolutely loved it. It's called Driving Force. It's on Sky Sports. And I got the chance to interview 10 of Britain's most successful sportswomen, which you can imagine for me was absolutely a huge thrill. And it tells the backstory of, you know, to their success, which we so often don't hear. We see the performances, we see the gold medals and the titles and so forth, but we don't hear about who and what inspired and helped them along the way. So this really exposes all the highs, the lows, all the curveballs, and it also highlights many of the issues and challenges that still exist in women's sport. And we hope that by raising a lot of the talking points through the programme, that we can create change, action, that will help the next generation of female sports stars.
Let's bring Kelly in now, because she is part of the series. Morning to you, Kelly.
Good morning.
I know your interview with Judy is so personal. You speak so honestly about your career, about your mental health and your struggles with injury. How, you know, at this point now, how comfortable is it for you to be able to be so honest?
It's really comfortable because I've been speaking about it since 2005, and I think that's, you know, the changes that we see in society. But I wanted to highlight that, you know, anyone that's kind of a real high achiever, especially in sport, there is a backstory, there is a journey, and we're all very different, of course, but I think that's what's interesting about Driving Force and that conversation that they've had with the top sportswomen.
We're just seeing pictures of you and Judy chatting now. And I think anyone who hasn't seen this yet, or even doesn't know your backstory in particular detail, will look at those images of you, you know, in the most glorious moments, and will be surprised by how at times you were struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I really did struggle, you know, and the story's very open now, but 2003, I had a breakdown, basically, 2 weeks into getting ready for World Championships in Paris. And, you know, I became clinically depressed and a self-harmer, yet I still had a dream. And that's the power of sport and the power of having visions and dreams and never giving up on them. You know, that's what pulled me through that time. And then, obviously, I won my 2 gold medals, but you have a knock-on effect for your mental health. But, you know, sport made me who I am to this day.
And Judy, what's it like for you to sit in the room and to hear these women tell these very powerful stories?
Oh, for me, it's obviously it's inspirational, but it's also incredibly educational because the messages that they all give out throughout their stories, and as Kelly says, everybody's story is different, but there are many commonalities in there in terms of the challenges that existed for them and the obstacles that they had to overcome. So, you know, I was absolutely loving hearing it and so grateful to Power of Women TV for giving me the opportunity to air them on Sky Sports.
Do you feel things are changing, Judy? Have things changed for the better?
I think prior to COVID, I think that women's sport was at its best ever point in terms of momentum and visibility. And of course, we've taken a giant step backwards because of COVID, because pretty much nothing's going on, which is another reason why driving force is so important at the moment, you know, that it gets women's sport on TV at a time when there isn't anything really for us to watch. But we've still got a long way to go. You know, yes, we're in a better position, but we can't afford to take our foot off the gas, and we have to keep making a noise about it, because if you don't make a noise, nobody hears you. And I think that's the power of this series, that 10 of Britain's most successful sportswomen talking about their journeys and how much they still all give back to their sport, particularly those who are not competing anymore. And that's, for me, that's important, is the numbers. And if we all stick together, we can hopefully create change for the future.
Kelly, as an Olympian, how difficult, how challenging is this next few months for people now who are hoping to compete in an Olympics this summer with all the uncertainty about whether it's even going to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging time, and it would be really nice that there could be a stop point for saying whether it's definitely going to go ahead or not, I suppose, because, you know, the preparation is all for that one moment. You know, you wake up every day, and even though that Olympic Games isn't the here and now, everything that you do is to prepare mentally as well as physically for the biggest moment of your life. And, you know, there's some people whose careers ended last year by not going to Tokyo that will end this year if they do or don't get to Tokyo. So those are the sports people that I really feel sorry for, because this is maybe their last chance. And I put myself back in Athens and think, if I didn't have Athens, what would have happened? So, but you know, there's bigger things to happen, obviously, and looking after people. So let's hope we can sort all that out, and then we can celebrate sport like we normally do.
And Kelly, how are you managing in this latest lockdown?
I'm actually loving it, because I just I can keep fit, and if anyone wants to join me at 12:30 live on my Instagram, Dame Kelly, on my YouTube, I do a lunch date with Kelly, so I get people off of their seats and get them moving during the day and get them energized. So 12:30 on YouTube, join me.
So you are busy.
Yeah, I'm loving it, because you know, I think what happened was everybody in the first lockdown, it was a big shock. You know, it really was for everybody to change, but we've been through that now. And even though it's really difficult for a lot of people, you know, so many people in really vulnerable situations or at home where they're really isolated, but the connection that people have had, unfortunately, just on, you know, kind of using social media, but it is a connection that keeps people going. And I think those that have probably got through lockdowns better are those that have kept active, because being active is really good for your mental health as well as your physical health. So please, anyone listening and feeling like, you know, really down on themselves and just can't get out, and we know we can't meet people, try and join in groups like this where actually other people are doing it, maybe for the first time, or just keeping themselves going.
Judy, the list of guests you have in this series is fantastic. I don't even know whether I should ask this next question because it might intimidate me, but who is next on your list?
Next week is Christina Horrigu, who's got just a remarkable story as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that one with everybody next Tuesday night.
Judy, Kelly, thank you both very much indeed. And you can watch Judy's new series, Driving Force, on Sky Demand.
I've watched the first, in which Judy actually answers the question. It's really excellent insight into what she went through as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.